Listen to that deep rumble that's the heartbeat of American agriculture firing up after decades of silence. These aren't your everyday John Deeres or Farmalls. We're talking about the rare iron horses that shaped our nation's farmland. Machines so unique that hearing them run today is like stepping back through a century of innovation. 10. Big 430. When farmers first laid eyes on the Big 430, they must have thought a locomotive had lost its way and wandered into their fields. By 1910, the Big Four moniker had been applied, referring to the huge size of the four cylinders, which were cast singly and mounted on the massive crankcase. This wasn't just a tractor, it was a monument to American engineering ambition. Its rear wheels measured 96 inches in diameter with a 24-inch face, making the wheel hubs chest-high for most men. The entire machine tipped the scales at 22,000 pounds. The Big Four won first-place gold medal for internal combustion engines over 30 horsepower at the 1910 Winnipeg Motor Contest, pulling a 7-bottom John Deere gang plow at the rate of 2.54 acres per hour. The gas traction company wasn't shy about their achievement. They bragged in a company advertisement from 1910 that they were the first and largest builder in the world of four-cylinder engines. The engine itself was a marvel, a headless four-cylinder vertical inline engine with a 6.5 by 10-inch bore and stroke. Starting this behemoth was an adventure in itself. There was no electric starter. You had to climb up on those massive wheels and hand crank the engine, hoping it would catch before you lost your grip. When it finally roared to life, the sound was unlike anything else in the field. 4 massive cylinders firing in sequence, each explosion echoing across the prairie like thunder. Emerson Brantingham acquired the Gas Traction Company in 1912 and continued production of the Big Four tractor until about 1920. Today, fewer than a handful survive, making them among the rarest American tractors in existence. 9. Rumley Oil Pull.
Dead center, you know.
Before Rumley came along, farmers had two choices: expensive gasoline or unreliable steam. The Rumley oil pull changed everything by running on cheap kerosene and using a cooling system that seemed downright crazy oil instead of water. The Rumley oil pull was the first tractor to use an oil cooling system which kept the engine at a steady temperature no matter how heavy the tractor's load. By 1909, they built and tested the first Rumley kerosene-fueled tractor and named it Kerosene Annie. When Annie proved herself in the field, full production began in 1910. Rumley was the first company to use kerosene to fuel its equipment, and the innovation proved both timely and profitable. What made the oil pull revolutionary wasn't just the fuel, it was the entire approach to combustion. The oil used in the Rumley had a minimum boiling point of 400 F, compared to water's 212 degrees. This allowed the engine to run hotter and burn kerosene more efficiently. The secret sauce was the complex 3-way carburetor, patented by Secor and Higgins, which combined gasoline, water, and kerosene. Starting an oil pull was a ritual. The oil pull starts on gas but runs on kerosene, requiring the operator to switch fuel sources once the engine warmed up. The sound was distinctive, a deep, throaty rumble punctuated by the occasional miss as the kerosene combusted. Some models required the operator to step out of the cab via the large iron rear wheel, climb onto the flywheel, and use his body weight to get it turning. These tractors were so well built that many are still running today, their oil cooling systems still functioning after more than a century. Before we move on to the next one in the list, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. thanks to all of you who do. 8. Fordson Model. Henry Ford didn't just want to put America on wheels, he wanted to lift the burden of farming off flesh and blood and lay it on steel and motors. The Fordson tractor went into mass production in 1917 and debuted for sale on October 8, 1917 for $750. In doing so, Ford created the Model T of tractors. The Fordson design for tractors was somewhat like the Ford Model T was for automobiles. It captured the public's imagination and widely popularized the machine with a reliable design, a low price affordable for workers and farmers, and a widespread dealership network. And this was revolutionary thinking applied to farming. The Fordson secret was its frameless design. The Fordson Model F tractors lacked a conventional frame. Instead, the engine, transmission, and axle housings were all bolted together to form the basic structure of the tractor. This made it lighter, cheaper to build, and perfect for mass production. Between 1917 and 1928, approximately 750,000 Fordson Model F tractors were produced. The engine was multi-fuel capable, usually tuned for gasoline or kerosene, but alcohol could also be burned. Starting procedure was typical for the era the Fordson started on gasoline from a small auxiliary tank, just a few quarts or liters, and then switched over to the main fuel tank once warmed up sufficiently. When a Fordson fired up, it produced a distinctive puttering sound that became the soundtrack of American farming in the 1920s. The four-cylinder engine's steady beat was music to farmers' ears. It meant they could finally afford mechanical power. At $750 initially, and later dropping to $395, the Fordson brought tractor ownership within reach of the average farmer for the first time in history. Ford had democratized farming just as he had democratized driving. 7. Alice Chalmers Fuel Cell Tractor. While everyone else was trying to make diesel engines bigger and more powerful, Alice Chalmers decided to leap straight into the space age. On October 15, 1959, an Alice Chalmers farm tractor with fuel cell was demonstrated in Milwaukee. This wasn't just ahead of its time, it was ahead of our time. The vehicle was powered by 112 units of 9 cells each, making a total of 1,008 fuel cells in all. Think about that, over 1,000 individual fuel cells working together to power a tractor. The chemical reaction between propane gas, hydrogen oxygen, and an electrolyte in the cells produced an electrical current that powered the 20-horsepower electric motor. What really set this machine apart was its silence. The tractor was silent while in operation. After decades of thundering engines, here was a tractor that could plow a field without making more noise than a whisper. In October 1959, near West Allis, Wisconsin, this fuel cell tractor plowed a field of alfalfa with a double-bottom plow. The specifications were impressive. The tractor weighed in at 5,270 pounds and had up to 3,000 pounds of drawbar pull. The efficiency was remarkable, too. This was 90% efficient versus diesel power at 40%. The only byproducts? Water and carbon dioxide. This was the first fuel cell-powered vehicle, beating GM's much-publicized Electrovan by 7 years. While it never went into production, the fuel cells were simply too expensive, Alice Chalmers had proven that alternative power sources could work in agriculture. They were just 60 years too early. 6. Waterloo Boy Model R. Before John Deere painted the agricultural world green, there was the Waterloo Boy, the tractor that would become the foundation of an empire. The Waterloo Gasoline Engine Company was founded in Waterloo, Iowa, after its founder invented the first usable gasoline-powered tractor in 1892. But it wasn't until the Model R rolled out in 1914 that farmers really took notice. More than 8,000 of the Waterloo Boy Model R tractors were sold between its introduction and 1918, when it was discontinued. This success caught the attention of John Deere himself, who purchased the company in 1918, and the Waterloo Boy models became the basis for the Green Giant's two-cylinder tractors. What made the Model R special wasn't just its reliability, it was the distinctive Johnny Popper sound that would become synonymous with Deere tractors for the next 4 decades. That horizontal two-cylinder engine with its slow, methodical beat could run all day on kerosene after warming up on gasoline. Farmers loved it because it was simple enough to fix with basic tools and tough enough to handle the brutal Midwest farming conditions. The real genius was in its simplicity. While competitors were experimenting with complex multi-cylinder designs, the Waterloo Boy proved that sometimes less is more. Its massive flywheel stored energy between power strokes, smoothing out the engine's operation and providing the steady power needed for belt work and field operations. Today, finding an original Model R in running condition is like discovering buried treasure. These machines laid the groundwork for what would become the world's largest agricultural equipment manufacturer. 5. International Harvester HT 340. Talk about being ahead of your time. International Harvester's HT 340 looked like it rolled straight out of the Jetsons and onto the farm field. The HT 340, for hydrostatic turbine, a product of International's experimental group, was never intended to go into production and didn't. This space-age machine was International's bold attempt to bring jet technology to farming. International had already developed hydrostatic transmissions in the 1950s, so all it had to do was attach one to a turbine from its aerospace subsidiary, the Solar Aircraft Company. The result was pure insanity on wheels, a turbine that could produce 85 horsepower from a 90-pound unit, spinning at an unbelievable 57,000 revolutions per minute. The HT 340 made its debut on the show circuit in July 1961. But tragedy struck almost immediately. The truck carrying it left the road after a bird flew into its cab, seriously damaging the prototype. They rebuilt it as the HT 341, painted it red instead of blue, and eventually donated it to the Smithsonian. The turbine scream was unlike anything farmers had ever heard. Imagine a jet engine warming up in your cornfield. It would drink a gallon of aviation fuel every 5 minutes, making it about as practical for farming as a drag racer for grocery runs. But man, what a statement it made. International proved they could think outside the box, even if that box happened to cost a fortune to fuel and could deafen you from a quarter mile away. 4. Minneapolis Moline Udeluxe Comfort Tractor. In 1938, while most farmers were still recovering from the Depression, Minneapolis Moline decided to build the Cadillac of tractors. The 1938 model UDLX Comfort Tractor was revolutionary for the time. This wasn't just a tractor, it was marketed as a dual-purpose machine that could plow your fields Monday through Friday and take your sweetheart to the dance on Saturday night. The UDLX had flowing, enclosing bodywork and a well-appointed all-weather cabin, which contained a passenger seat, making it the first factory-enclosed cab tractor in history. It was equipped with automotive features such as safety glass windscreen, windshield wipers, an electric starter, and a dashboard with a speedometer, clock, sun visor, rear view mirror, plus a heater, a cigarette lighter, ashtray, and a radio. Painted in bright prairie gold with chrome bumpers and hubcaps, this 6,400-pound beauty could hit 40 miles per hour on the highway, assuming you could handle the kidney-pounding ride since it had no suspension. The model experienced poor sales due to its high cost of $2,155 US, double that of a Farmall or Deere. To put that in perspective, You could buy 3 Ford cars for the price of one UDLX. Only 125 of the UDLX were produced before production stopped in 1941. The concept was brilliant but premature. It would take another 30 years before enclosed cabs became standard. Today, approximately 30 known survivors exist, and a fully restored example can fetch close to $200,000 at auction. Not bad for a tractor that nobody wanted to buy when it was new. 3. Samson model. General Motors' entry into the tractor business is a classic tale of corporate ambition meeting harsh reality. In 1917, GM, under the leadership of William C. Durant, purchased the company to enter the market for farm tractors and to emulate the success of Ford Motor Company's highly successful Fordson Model F tractor. GM moved the operation to Janesville, Wisconsin, where the city's population of 14,000 at the time Samson tractor began production in 1919 boomed to 20,000 in just 18 months. The Model M was supposed to be GM's answer to the Fordson, priced initially at $650 to undercut Ford. But that plan backfired spectacularly. They were losing money on every unit, so they hiked the price to $840, instantly killing their competitive edge. The real head-scratcher was the Model D Iron Horse, a tractor you steered with reins like a horse with no seat for the operator. GM figured farmers familiar with horses wouldn't need to learn how to drive. They figured wrong. The Iron Horse was such a disaster that surviving examples are now among the rarest American tractors in existence. General Motors reportedly lost $33 million on the Samson venture before it was shut down in 1923. And the Janesville assembly plant was turned over to the Chevrolet division. It was GM's most expensive lesson in understanding their market. Turns out farmers wanted mechanical progress, not mechanical horses. Today, a restored Samson Model M is a prized possession for collectors, representing one of the most spectacular corporate missteps in American agricultural history. 2. Ford Nye Golden Jubilee. In 1953, Ford didn't just build a tractor, they built a celebration. The Ford NAA tractor was introduced by Ford as an entirely new model in 1953 and dubbed the Golden Jubilee. Ford NAA Tractor Wikipedia. This machine marked Ford's 50th anniversary in style, and more importantly, it represented Ford's declaration of independence in the tractor world. It was the first tractor Ford built after losing its court battle with Harry Ferguson in 1952 over the patents the Irish inventor held on the Ferguson system 3-point hitch. Ford NAA Tractor Wikipedia Ford had to completely redesign their approach, and they came out swinging. Below the NAA's new hood was a 134 CU.in. Overhead valve, gas burning inline 4-cylinder engine were 32 horsepower. Ford NAA Tractor Wikipedia. They called it the Red Tiger engine, and it had claws. The Golden Jubilee was 4 inches longer, 4 inches higher, and 100 pounds heavier at 2,840 pounds Ford NAA Tractor Wikipedia than its predecessor, the 8N. But the real improvements were under the skin. The Golden Jubilee featured live hydraulics, a 50th year Golden Jubilee badging, an overhead valve, Red Tiger 4-cylinder engine, and streamlined styling. Ford NAA Tractor Wikipedia. When you fire up a Golden Jubilee, you hear the future. Gone was the familiar knock of the old flathead engines. This overhead valve design purred with a smooth, confident rhythm that told farmers a new era had arrived. The engine starts instantly with the push of a button, no hand cranking required, and settles into a steady idle that sounds like it means business. This machine was one of 128,965 units built in Highland Park, Michoud. 1953, Ford Golden Jubilee is Feld family favorite. The 1953 models are the ones collectors prize today because of that special golden anniversary badge on the nose. It was purchased new off the showroom floor for $1,560, 1953. Ford Golden Jubilee is Feld family favorite, a bargain for a tractor that would become the backbone of small farms across America. Today, these golden anniversaries of progress are still working on farms, still pulling their weight, proving that Ford built them to last not just 50 years, but a century and beyond. 1. Hart Par 3060. Old Reliable.
And go.
And here it is, folks, the granddaddy of them all. If the Hart Par number 3 was the first shot fired in the tractor revolution, the 3060 Old Reliable was the sustained bombardment that changed farming forever. The Hart Par 3060 was one of the most popular early tractors ever made, with more than 3,700 built and sold between 1907 and 1918. This wasn't just an evolution of the earlier Hart Par designs, it was a complete reimagining of what a tractor could be. The Hart Par 3060 is powered by a 2-cylinder engine with a displacement of 38.6 liters. Let that sink in, 38.6 liters. Modern pickup trucks have engines 1/10 that size. The engine was advanced for the time with a single overhead cam design and hemispherical combustion chambers. It would be started on gasoline and then switched over to kerosene, which was less costly. The nickname Old Reliable wasn't marketing fluff. These machines earned it by running day after day, year after year, in the harshest conditions the Great Plains could throw at them. By 1910, Hart Par was the dominant maker of internal combustion tractors, with several sources crediting the company with selling more than 70% of the market. The sound of a 3060 starting up is unforgettable. First, the gasoline ignition with its relatively smooth idle, then the switch to kerosene and the deep, earth-shaking boom of those massive cylinders firing. Each power stroke moves so much air you can feel it in your chest from 50 feet away. Hart Par proved that gas tractors weren't just a novelty, they were the future. By the time production ended in 1918, the age of the horse was over, and the age of mechanical farming had truly begun. These 10 iron giants represent more than just rare machines. They're the DNA of American innovation, each one a gamble that shaped how we feed the world today. From Hart Par's pioneering gas engines to Alice Chalmers' fuel cell experiment, these tractors remind us that progress comes from folks brave enough to try something nobody's done before. Whether they succeeded spectacularly or failed magnificently, each one pushed the envelope and left their mark on history. If this journey through tractor history got your motor running, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Until next time, keep those engines turning and that history alive.